So because my hair is so fine and short, I have a contingent of barbers in my local area that I usually go and see. And last time I got my hair cut, I went to my husband's barber, and who we've been friendly with for a really long time. And I sat down and I said, I have this really big cowlick right in the back. He's like, yeah, I know, I saw it when you walked in. I can't do anything with it. I went to It's Kim at middle of the book march. I'm still cracking up at myself with my cowlick comment. It's just gonna be there, so I'm pointing it out to you so you can point and laugh at me as well. I had a very shorty bookish week last week, and not that it was a short week, and not that I didn't read anything. I read a lot of short books in honor of Shorty September, Bert and Sean from Past Storytime, and I will link their channel below. It was a lot of fun because I kind of walked around my shelves and I pulled out different short books that I've been looking at forever, and I'm like, I want to read that, I want to read that, I want to read that. And I have returned to Scribd. I'm sorry, Sean. I feel like I've betrayed you, but I signed off of Scribd for a little bit because I was really frustrated and annoyed, and I've since renewed my membership, and I found a few short audiobooks that I listened to. And lo and behold, when you go back to Scribd, they start loading you up with all kinds of selections, where when I signed off, I was getting nothing. I was getting no recommendations, and I couldn't find anything. It was so frustrating, but hey, sign off, wait a couple of weeks, sign back on. All kinds of stuff there now. So let me tell you about the books I finished last week. And this is A Passage North by Anouk Arud-Pragasam. And this is now shortlisted for the Booker Prize for 2021. This is the story of Krishan, who is a young Sri Lankan man, and he lives in a family with his mother and his elderly grandmother. His father was killed in a bombing in Sri Lanka. And this takes place after the devastating effects of the Sri Lankan Civil War, which I knew nothing about and looked into it, read into it. So really interesting body of knowledge that I didn't know anything about. And it really helped me with the context of this novel. Krishan is a young man living with his mother and grandmother. He's partially responsible for helping take care of his grandmother. She is descending into a more advanced dementia. She needs pretty much round-the-clock care. So his mother hired a woman named Rainey, who was discovered by Krishan in a psychiatric hospital getting treatment for a mental illness. And it was an interesting dynamic as to why and how his mother hired her. But they brought her into the home to take care of his grandmother, and she left to go back up north where her home is and her family is. And then Krishan gets a phone call from Rainey's adult daughter saying that Rainey has died. And they're hoping that here's the funeral, here's where it is, and the date and the time. And Krishan realizes that somebody from his family needs to go to her funeral, and it's him. He's the one that's going to travel north to go to Rainey's funeral. So when I picked up the book, I'm expecting a passage north. I'm expecting the details of what happens to him on this journey, what his thoughts are. He is traveling through a war-torn country. He has to be very careful. There's north and south. There are different political factions. He wants to be cautious. He's a little leery about traveling north. That's where most of the conflict was happening. He is a privileged young man from the south of Sri Lanka. And so he's kind of, on guard, but he takes the trip. I really enjoyed the writing. I enjoyed his writing style because it's a lot of long passages, long sentences, contemplation, philosophical ideas, a lot of self-analysis. It is all that self-analysis and philosophy that kind of bored me with this book. I was waiting to get a more meatier story. There's no dialogue. We read everything in Krishan's head, all of his thoughts and his ponderings and analysis. It's too much. It was too much for me. So I really liked the writing. I did not enjoy the content. Krishan broke up with a girlfriend, but he recently got an email from her out of the blue, and all of a sudden, the majority of his pondering is about the ex-girlfriend, who, in my opinion, he was quite obsessed with, and it was a situation of she just wasn't that into him. And so much of the book is his thoughts on the ex-girlfriend. We get to more than halfway through the novel, and he hasn't even started on the journey north yet. So I was like, when's this gonna get going? This author has a doctorate in philosophy. And it's very obvious that that's the material he used, and that's how he wrote the book. And again, I liked his style. I did not like the content that much. I did give it a 3 on Goodreads. I think it's well written. I would rather have read more, not action, but more, get out of your head, Krishan. Get out of his head. Get the character out of his head and describe other things to me. So it was okay. It was all right. Now, I finished 5 shorties. This was a lot of fun because I picked up books that I've had forever, and I was so happy that I did that. I'm happy that this prompt moved me to do that because I had a great time and I read some great books. Okay. The first one is a book that I had on my Mooks and Gripes bucket list book tag. And I decided, you know what? Shorty September is the perfect reason to pick this up and get it off of my bucket list. And this book is 164 pages long. A book I've wanted to read for years, and it's Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. I will be telling you the results of the bucket list voting, but not in this video. I'll figure something out, and yeah, sometime next week. I don't know. We'll see what I do. But I did read The Bluest Eye, and I thought it was very good. I really loved it. This is Toni Morrison's first novel, published in 1970, and it is the story of 11-year-old Piccola Breedlove, who is a young black girl who believes she is ugly. She's been raised to believe she is ugly by her family. She comes from an incredibly abusive, alcoholic, neglectful home. She befriends briefly 2 other young girls, Claudia and, oh gosh, what's her sister's name? Frida? I think that's her name. 2 other young black girls who have a more stable family and stable home life. And this is set in the 50s. Good gracious, I know nothing about this book. So these 3 young girls very temporarily form somewhat of a friendship, but Piccola is the girl at school that everybody hates because of her looks, her poverty, the way how introverted and shy and afraid she seems. They make fun of her, they exclude her, call her names, all kinds of things. Come to find out, Piccola gets pregnant by her father raping her. And it's a discussion on color, trauma, abuse. Piccola ends up going to a pastor / soothsayer / quack kind of man who claims he has visions and he can make miracles happen. And she goes to him asking him to give her blue eyes because she just wants to be beautiful. And there's so much heartbreak to this novel. There's so much commentary on the definition and standards of beauty, especially with black girls, and the blue eyes. And there's so much comparison in the novel with Piccola's mother, who works for a white family, and the comparison between the young white girl and Piccola's the young black girl. It's profound and heartbreaking and has so much to say. I am so glad I finally read it. It was so good. And Toni Morrison's style from the very beginning of this book, I could tell immediately why the rest of her novels sound and read the way that they do. I just thought it was exceptional. So good. What's the next one? Oh yeah, here's the next shorty. This book is 180 pages. This is A Feather on the Breath of God by Sigrid Nunez. This is her first novel, and I've had this for a little bit. This was first published in 1995. Her first novel, and it's autobiographical, so it's autofiction. It's the story of this young girl with a German mother and a Chinese Panamanian father. These two met towards the end of World War II in Europe, and her mother got pregnant before they were married, and they kind of had to get married. And eventually he moved the family to the US, to New York and Brooklyn. And there's so much here. Her mother, her German mother, is just miserable having left Germany. The girl, the narrator of our novel, is the third child, and she was the product of a botched abortion that failed. And her mother told her that she made her miserable because she didn't want her, she didn't want to be pregnant, she didn't want to have a third child. And the mother and the father don't love each other. The mother is constantly haranguing and angry and rageful toward the father. So this family grows up with a dysfunctional, angry home. Our narrator tries to figure out how to exist with these parents. And her Chinese father works 7 days a week, takes no vacations. He is a silent man, versus her German mother, who does nothing except talk and create noise and be angry and all of that. This is in Sigrid Nunez's kind of her style. Again, first novel, and I read The Friend last year, National Book Award winning book, The Friend. And it's the same interesting style. It's vignettes, writing in vignettes, and different small passages that kind of move the story along. I really enjoyed this book. And again, just like Morrison's book, I could see the development of Nunez's style from this book, her first novel, to not her latest, because she has a new book out this year, to The Friend. So I really enjoyed that. The next one is a collection of short stories, and this comes in at 125 pages. This is Black Vodka by Deborah Levy, and this is a collection of 10 stories that I enjoyed reading. I'm not a short story fan, but I am a Deborah Levy fan. I really love her writing. This collection was published in 2013. Again, a short story collection is hit or miss. I gave this 3 stars. Some stories I enjoyed, some not so much. It's a very short collection, so the short stories are pretty short. I think I more enjoy more narrative, more context, more story. And so short stories often disappoint me. There have been exceptions. There are other short story collections that I really loved. And this was good. I love Deborah Levy's writing. It was okay. I think I gave this 3 stars on Goodreads. If you're a Deborah Levy fan, it's definitely worth picking up. So I did enjoy picking that up. Okay, 2 audios. 2 of them, one super short, the other one pretty short. The first one is The Testament of Mary by Colm Tóibín, and this was a retelling of Mary, the mother of Jesus, narrated by Meryl Streep. Phenomenal narration. When you get an actor to when you get an actor to narrate an audiobook, they put their acting chops into the presentation. It's not like somebody reading the book into a microphone. An actor put so much of their talent into this, and her narration was incredible. And this is an imagining of the mother of Jesus as looking at her son as just a regular human man who was traumatically murdered. And she comes off as a grieving parent, not the mother of God. She is incredibly resentful at when the apostles were following Jesus around, and they would come to her house, and it was almost like having a bunch of frat boys at her house. They would make things dirty, they'd eat everything, they would be loud, and she hated it. She never wanted to label her son as the Son of God. She saw him as her child. And she was so resentful after his death when the apostles kept coming to her, asking her for his story and her story and trying to talk to her about him being the savior of the world. And she didn't want to have anything to do with it. She is depicted as this grieving mother, an angry, grieving mother. I thought it was exceptional. There's definitely some conversation about it being sacrilegious, but I find no harm in taking a biblical story and reimagining it and retelling it and kind of analyzing it and pondering on it and working it out in your head to kind of remind ourselves these were humans, and Mary would have had human emotions at the loss of her son. So it was a really interesting audiobook. I loved Meryl Streep's narration. It's excellent. So the last one is a really short one that I loved. It is called Cinderella Liberator by Rebecca Solnit, and it's actually a children's book. She rewrites the story of Cinderella. I absolutely loved this audio. It's only 45 minutes long, but the actual story is probably 25 minutes, and then there's an afterword that she talks about. I loved it. It was so forward-thinking. And Cinderella is depicted as a girl who has goals, and her dream is not to marry the prince. The prince's name is Prince Nevermind, which I thought was so cool. And the fairy godmother she does the thing with the ball. She dresses up Cinderella. She gives her the glass slippers. She makes the coach out of a pumpkin. But she talks to Cinderella, and I wrote some notes. She says, you're nice to mice, you bake splendid cakes, and you have a heart full of hopes and dreams. And she's talking to Cinderella and reminding her of her worth and her value, that she's not just there to marry a prince. And Cinderella has goals, and her goals are to run and own a cake shop and to ride dapple gray horses. I thought this was so imaginative and beautiful. Cinderella is an imaginative, wonderful cake baker. She wants her own bakery. Prince Nevermind wants to be a farmer. He doesn't want to be a prince. This was so awesome. And this is a book that should be thrown into the hands of every child, not just girls, because we tend to read the princess stories and the fairy tales to primarily girls. This is a children's story that every child could read and should read. And even if they listen to the audio, which is narrated by the author, Rebecca Solnit, it's a great audio. It's a lovely story. It's so empowering, and it reminds children that they are not stuck down certain paths that we adults put them on. They are their own people, and they have worth and value with their own goals. So I loved it. It was such a short, quick listen, and I recommend that for anybody with children. I recommend you go and listen to it if you have any interest. That is it. I think that's it. Yes, that's it. I am slowing down for the rest of September. This was plenty. I'm not going to be picking up any more shorties. I might, if I find a good audiobook, listen to that in the car. I have 3 books that I want to quickly show you. I am in process of Romola by George Eliot with our Eliot 2021 read-along. I am working on The Sympathizer by Viet Thanh Nguyen with Patrice Jones as our buddy read. This is the first time I'm reading something with Patrice, and I'm really excited about that. And I am about to embark on Damnation Spring by Ash Davidson, and I'm reading this with my in real life book group, The Critical Chicks. So that's that. What else? How did I read all these shorties? Shorties are short. It's in the name. So it wasn't hard, But I've been at home full time this past week working because my husband tested positive for COVID. We are all vaccinated. So he did test positive at the beginning of the week, so he's been in isolation. I'm negative. I got my test results Friday morning. So we're happy about that. And like I said, we were all vaccinated. He has had like major cold symptoms, kind of like the flu, not stomach issues, no nausea. But his symptoms are on the upswing. He's improving. So he's okay. He's very much okay. He's definitely improving, doing a lot of sleeping. And so he's been in isolation. So I've been cooking and doing all the cleaning and that type of thing. Getting groceries delivered. Who would have thought? I never thought I would be a person that would arrange for groceries to be delivered, because until I got my test results, I didn't want to go anywhere. So that's what we've been doing. I've been home all week, and even though I'm working full time, I'm not in the shop, I'm not in the office. So if I do have downtime, I've been getting a lot of reading done. That's it for me. Let me know what you think of any of the books I showed you, or the shorties, or the audios, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.